Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good. It actually works.
Magic.
Yeah. Well, nice to see you.
And you as well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So you keeping busy during the lockdown?
Yeah. We got this weekly live stream on Fridays.
Right.
It requires a lot of prep and getting ready for it. And with the release of the album, still doing a lot of press, a lot of interviews. So that footwork has been about the same, just obviously missing doing gigs with the guys.
Yeah. Any idea when that may start again?
Well, the very second they say go, we will go. But Steve Wertheimer hasn't mentioned when he's thinking about reopening the Continental, but when he does, our residency will resume, and hopefully we'll be able to make some noise with this record, and some touring opportunities will present itself.
Okay. So you have a new album.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, Monte Warden and the Dangerous Few. Now, I know you've been working on this project for a good number of years. I remember seeing you several years ago over at the Continental Club Gallery. So for people who may not be familiar with your career, you've been around the Austin scene since, I remember, maybe it's the early 80s with Whoa Trigger, which was a rockabilly band.
I was 14 when Whoa Trigger got together. So, and by the grace of God, Jay, I mean, this is all I've ever done. I went from Whoa Trigger, then in the mid 80s, late 80s, my band, the Wagoneers, got together. We were like the first group to get a record deal off of South by Southwest, and the Wagoneers were around from like 86 to 91. Then I had started making solo records, then began writing, kind of transitioned into a songwriting career. Been very blessed to write a few hits for George Strait, Travis Tritt, Patti Loveless, Kelly Willis. And about 2016, about 4 years ago, my wife Brandy and I started writing songs in the Great American Songbook tradition, and that's where the Dangerous Few project came from.
So your career has been largely, country music. So
my gosh, yes.
So this new project, the Dangerous Few, is really kind of a step out of, in a big way, a step out of that. So how did this project come about? Tell us the history of it.
Thank you. About 30 years ago, I went and saw the movie When Harry Met Sally, and they had all those songs from the Great American Songbook. Sinatra sang, Nat Cole sang, Ray Charles sang, Harry Connick did a bunch of them. And I remember I was 21 when that movie came out and thinking, somebody's going to write new songs in that genre, and it's going to be bigger than Coca-Cola. And I did not have the chops as a writer to write anything in that genre at all. I was just thinking somebody's gonna. And then as the years went on, I always knew somebody's gonna do that. And the crazy thing for me, Jay, as a writer, was I could never understand why the Great American Songbook closed. No other genre has its songbook closed. Rock and roll didn't close after the Beatles, or when Buddy Holly died, or when Bruce Springsteen, or country didn't close after Hank Williams. But this genre closed for some reason after about Burt Bacharach and Hal David and Jimmy Webb. Like the early 70s is when it closed. And I went, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Then as I got better and better as a writer, and not only better as a writer, but as I became more successful as a writer, I found my co-writing opportunities broadened to where I could write with virtually anybody I wanted to. And so I got to write with some guys that had success in the jazz world or the traditional pop world. And then I just realized, like anything else, there ain't but 12 notes. I mean, music is music. And so once my chordal vocabulary expanded past just the traditional country chords, I also realized with what this genre brings is your lyrical vocabulary. You can say anything you want. You can use the whole dictionary, whereas in like honky-tonk music, you can use maybe a third of the dictionary. And once I started writing these songs, I immediately fell in love with it. I was immediately pretty good at it. And my wife, Brandy, and I just started thinking about the phrases, the phraseology and the phrasing and these things, the melody structure. And then once you start writing it, Jay, you realize there are just some chordal tricks that traditional pop and the jazz from the 40s through the 60s use. There was just some chordal tricks. Like in a country song, you might go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord to make a certain dramatic point. And in jazz, I would find you would go from the 1 to the flat 7/9 to make the same type of dramatic jump. And once you unlock those things, then it comes about just whether or not you're a good writer, you know.
Mm-hmm. So is the writing part the main difference of, writing these songs with a bigger vocabulary than you would with a country song?
Definitely, yes. Wow, what a great question. Yes. For me, I have always, it's been my experience that anyone that is a songwriter first, regardless of what else they do in this business, whether they sing or play or produce or engineer, what we all come down to first is that we're songwriters first and foremost. And for me, I have always been so turned on by Johnny Mercer and Sammy Cahn and Jimmy Van Heusen and so many of those great writers from that era, Mancini, Bacharach. And so once I started just making that almost like just a psychic shift that I'm going to start trying to write in that way and with those chordal brushes, then you just find whether, if you're a good writer, you're a good writer. And I think once you've educated yourself enough to make those lyrical and melodic shifts, then I think you can do it. Having said that, Brandy and I found so much of what helped our writing with the Dangerous Few project was our friendship and musical relationship with Floyd Domino. Floyd co-wrote 5 of these things with us, and he's such a brilliant player, and he so often knew what I was trying to do or what I was meaning to do melodically, and he could take that with his piano, and then later I would figure out what the guitar should say with that phrase.
Mm-hmm. For those people who aren't familiar with Floyd Domino, he was a founding member of Asleep at the Wheel. Was with that group for a while, and then has gone on to a solo career where he's played with Merle Haggard and Waylon Jennings and done all sorts of studio work. And that said, is a great jazz player. Oscar Peterson is really his go-to guy. So real all-around player. So when you were putting this together, did the music kind of guide the songwriting, or was it the other way around? Did you kind of have the lyrics and then put the music to it?
Oh, wow. No, for this thing, in writing the songs, when we were first thinking of the project, Brandy and I, I wrote all 12 songs on the record, but Brandy and I wrote 11 of those 12. So it's really a great musical partnership. We spend a lot of our time, usually every day, running at McKinney Falls State Park. And if we have a germ of an idea, I'd run off in one direction and she'd run off in the other. And then we would see, and also McKinney Falls is just such an amazing, vibey, spiritual place. And so it really lends itself to creativity. And we would find one of us might have a great idea, and then we'd get home with the guitars and or the keyboard and try to chase it from there. But most of the time, I would find there would be a lyrical phrase that would start the thing, but sometimes it'd be one of us would be humming something. And early on, what we discovered was if the music was out of my wheelhouse, my prowess, I should say, not so much my wheelhouse, my guitar prowess, we would record a cappella the melodic idea and run like hell over to Floyd's house to have him figure it out. Because early on, what I discovered was if I sat down with the guitar and wasn't quite as eloquent as a player as I wanted to be for the musical phrase, I would dumb it down to the chords I knew. And so that was disrespectful to the melody we were trying to write. So we'd run over to Floyd and go, "Help, Floyd, what do I mean here?" and he would show us. But when I started the band, Jay, my first vision for it was a bit slicker than what it wound up being. I pictured it more of a Sinatra, Bobby Darin thing. But then as I got the players together, it got funkier and greasier and rootsier and much more Austin, to where I love what it became much more than what I had envisioned. I'd never heard music like what the Dangerous Few makes. I think Eric Telford's trumpet against T. Jared's piano or Floyd Domino's piano, and with the rhythm section of Brent and Moss, having been in the Wagoneers and with my solo projects, it just sounds funky. And having had a blessed career in country music, I had never really experienced a sound that had never been made before. And I really, really dig it. And the guys just do a phenomenal job playing these songs. And it's one of the few times in my life where what I had pictured was actually exceeded by the reality of what it became. It was really cool.
Well, it certainly, the vocals are definitely Monte Warden, for sure. And it's just nice having Eric Telford's just terrific on trumpet. And I've been a big fan of the piano player, Jared.
Jared Bonta.
Yeah, Jared Bonta. And so that really adds that jazzy element to it. It's a real kind of mid-century modern sound, right?
You nailed it. That's exactly mid-century. That's exactly what it is. We have so many songs that we have written for this project. We have pictured if they could have been mid-century modern commercials for whatever refrigerator they were trying to sell in 1963. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah,
highest praise ever. Thank you.
So, and it's my understanding it's essentially a live album, right? It's essentially live. Yeah. And the band's been playing this music for years. They had the residency at the gallery, Continental Club Gallery. So, you just went in the studio and just played it live?
Well, yeah. One thing, thank you for pointing that out. We made the whole record in 2 days at Arlen. Now, we didn't want to do it live at the gallery. We knew we wanted to do it at a studio with everybody mic'd up and whatever isolation you could find in a studio. But the record was produced by Brandy and Eric Telford and Moss Palermo and Tim Palmer. And if you know Tim's work, he's just a stunning recording engineer. He's a recorder and producer. Pearl Jam, U2. He just did the new Jackie Benson record. He did the last 5 David Bowie records. He's just a phenomenal guy for capturing sounds. And he's also a friend of 10 years. So Brandy got him to come see The Few like in 2017. We'd been together about 6 months. And he just said, he's a British cat. He said, I'd love to do it, mate. But what was important for me is it would have been kind of BS if we had recorded it in stages, or the band lays down tracks and I come in and record my vocals later. That's not right for this genre. So for my research on the record, I had my favorite 5 or 6 sonically sounding records of this genre, and then I found online as many photos from those sessions as I could find. Mm-hmm. And virtually everybody was in the same room. The singer was in the middle of the room instead of in an ISO booth, and everybody was playing and singing at once. And the only thing that when we got with Tim, when he was worried about bleed over and isolation, and I said, man, does the bleed over bother you on a Charles Mingus record? Does the bleed over bother you on a Buddy Holly record? It's like all of these great records, everybody was in the room together. And then the challenge becomes, can the guys play? Well, these are great musicians. Right. And something that I can take no credit for because it's a gift, I sing almost with perfect pitch. So, in fact, earlier in my career, when a producer would hear me sing, they would assume the fact that I had sung on pitch as a take. And I always sing on pitch. So then it's just about getting the right performance. And because we had performed at least 200 gigs with this band, it was just about getting the best performance. Everybody's staying loose. You know, Eric Telford is kind of our jazz cop, you know, and he makes sure that everything is true to that genre and those arrangements. Mas Palermo is kind of our feel rootsy cop, and Brandy knows how best my voice should sound. And Tim was just charged with putting all those elements together. And really, we got of the 12 songs, we got 7 in day 1 and 5 on day 2. Wow. And with time left over, because the guys can play it great. And I'm shocked that anybody would want to do a record another way. Because, man, just rehearse like hell and go play. And if you got the chops, it'll sound great.
And you guys have been playing that music for, as you said, what, 200 gigs worth? Yeah. So there was nothing to it. The easy part was just laying it down at Arlen. I think I think the longest it took to get a song. One song was 4 takes, but most songs were 1 or 2. You know, and after 4 takes, you know, it's a thing of diminishing returns. You would just stop what you're doing and go back and come back to the song later. But most things were 1 and 2 takes. You know. Yeah. And should be. Well, speaking of mid-century modern, tell us a little bit about the cover. Let's see if we can get a good picture of it here. It really captures the music.
And let me show you this. Here it is on vinyl. See, now.
Vinyl, yeah.
But I'll tell you, the artist is a guy named Derek Yaniger, and he has professionally he's known as Derek Art, Derekart. Brandy and I were going through a bunch of mid-century modern books and styles, and we kept coming back to this one cat named Derek Yaniger, and we loved his stuff, and it just captured the optimism and the fun and frivolity and sexiness of what the Dangerous Few were. And you know, and so my thinking is, because I just some club dude from Austin, I was going, well, let's call somebody that's like Derek Yaniger. And Brandy, coming from Nashville and worked at major label records, she said, no, let's call Derek Yaniger. Why would we call somebody like that? So she gave him a call, and he was so sweet and gracious. He said, thank you so much. I don't really do band posters and band art anymore, but I can give you some names. And he said, by the way, what's your husband's band name? He was just being polite. She goes, oh, it's Monte Warden. And he went, Monte Warden from the Wagoneers? Oh, I'd love to do it. So Derek sent over a couple of samples of where he was going, and everything he sent over we just loved. But he speaks real cool cat. He goes, hey, cats and kittens, put on your mittens and check your computer, you know, all this stuff. And he sent over something, and then that Brandy loved. And she got back to him and she said, I'll tell you what, Daddy-O, I'm a smitten kitten. And from that, we wrote the song Here, Kitty, Kitty. So if we hadn't have done that, he hadn't sent that, we never would have written that. But we knew we needed the art to reflect the record just as much as the music did. Because, you know, so much of, to get people to buy product now, when you can download everything, you have to have something worth, just like the records from the 50s. You have to have art worth possessing, you know.
Right. So when you do the Feel Good Hour on Friday, are you playing songs from the Dangerous Few, or are you doing Wagoneers stuff? Or?
I'm doing songs from throughout my career. I'm doing Wagoneers stuff. I'm doing songs I've been blessed to write for other people, and a lot of Dangerous Few stuff. And now that we've been selling the record in pre-orders for a couple of weeks now, it's been so humbling that we've been getting a lot of requests for Dangerous Few stuff. So every Friday at 7 we do it, and it's about, I would say it's about right now about half Dangerous Few stuff, and then maybe a quarter Wag stuff, and then a quarter cover. I'll sing songs that of mine that other people have recorded. Mm-hmm. But this Friday, I'm doing all Dangerous Few stuff. I'm doing the whole album.
Yeah, the album comes out on Friday
the 19th. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So again, how do people access the Feel Good Hour?
It's on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Monte Warden. Just go to that and they can watch it. And if they can't find it there, the Monte Warden Feel Good Hour is its own Facebook page. The Monte Warden Feel Good Hour, you can go there. I have all 12 episodes up. This week I'll have episode 13 up. And they can get the record through thedangerousfew.com. They can go order it, or they can get it via the Facebook, the Feel Good Hour, via Venmo and PayPal. And if they want a record, Jay, we will find a way to get it to them.
All right, great. Well, Monte, thanks so much for your time, and good luck on the record. It's really a great project.
Oh, Jay, and thank you. And I got to say, your early stamp of approval, like you came to like the third or fourth gig, just was such a shot in the arm and kick in the ass for us. And just thank you. You are a huge part of this story. You have no idea.
Oh,
thank you, brother.
Yeah, thanks very much. All right.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Be well.
Take care.